Spirit of life, God of many names, mystery beyond naming. We gather in thanks for this good day and for the adventure of each of our lives. Today, as we celebrate youth, particularly our graduating seniors, we're reminded that the opportunities to change and grow keep emerging in our lives. A bewildering combination of challenges, unforeseen opportunities, and companions on the journey show up around every bend. Dear God, we thank you for this journey of growth. We thank you for companions, for courage, for hope, and for curiosity about what will possibly be next. May we remember that wherever we are, whatever age or leg of this journey, how we choose to live this part, this moment, is what matters most. I invite you now into a short time of shared silence. You might use this time for a bit of silent meditation or to lift up the prayers of your own heart. Namaste. Amen. Shalom and blessed be.
If you'd have asked me a year or two ago what I thought living deliberately looked like, I probably would have said something about being productive, about waking up at 5 a.m. for class to allow for time to take extra courses after school, about studying for hours for SATs, APs, and every other test that might give me an edge in college admissions, preparing for a career that was sensible and that would allow me to earn a good living. Reflecting back now, I'm sure I spent the better part of my time in high school living within that mindset. I was convinced that I wanted to study mechanical engineering, not because I'd particularly found any deeper meaning with the idea of being an engineer, but because I knew it meant a comfortable and productive career. I devoted much of my time to extracurricular activities that I didn't necessarily enjoy, but which seemed like good additions to my resume. I was working hard to achieve my goals, to be sure, but I never stopped to ask myself why they were important to me. It wasn't until the pandemic brought society to a screeching halt this last year that I found myself questioning what I truly wanted to do with my life and what I thought living deliberately truly looked like. When the pandemic sent us all home last year, we suddenly became suburban Thoreaus. Isolated in our worlds of overjoyed pets and unending Zoom calls, life just wasn't the same. For me, this shift meant going a whole lot slower. Whereas a typical day for myself and for many millions of other students might have meant waking up early and not getting home for 12 or 13 hours, all of a sudden, sleeping in well past the sun was up and attending class without ever getting out of bed became the new norm. And even if I'd wanted to still scrape together some resemblance of productivity, I soon had no choice but to embrace my slow and secluded lifestyle due to a knee injury that left me immobile for months. I spent hours on end reading poetry, philosophy, and history books that I loved, but that I'd somehow never found time for before. I played board games with my family, went on road trips with my friends, and began to rethink committing myself to a lifestyle that left me so little time for the activities I considered meaningful and fun. I think it was somewhere into my binge watching the 5th season of Friends that I stopped and wondered if I'd gotten it all wrong. Maybe living deliberately wasn't about getting things done or working the day away. Those might be part of a deliberate life, but they couldn't be the bedrock. They weren't the reason why. What if living deliberately wasn't about achieving success so much as it was about, as Thoreau tells us, fronting the essential facts of life? Now, I'd like to be able to tell you that in that mess of crumpled sheets and charging cords, upon having this realization about deliberate living, I was able to chart out a path ahead and feel confident in what I wanted to do with my life. But the truth is, I didn't have a clue. Honestly, I still don't today, and I'm not sure that I'll ever find out what those essential facts are in my own life. I enjoy studying philosophy, and through working on the leadership team of Tapestry's own Welcoming Neighbors Home, I've discovered that I have a passion for public policy. So that intersection is where I plan to start. It's scary not knowing if I'm setting off in the right direction, but I take comfort in the fact that I've had the confidence to step back from a pragmatic path into a field that didn't invigorate me and instead pursue interests that do. What I believe is important at the end of the day, and what I now think that deliberate living means, is simply daring to look for those elusive places of meaning in our lives. We don't all have to conduct this search from a cabin in the woods like Thoreau. Living deliberately might mean choosing to study philosophy and public policy instead of engineering, coming to church on a Sunday morning to hear some seniors tell their stories, or any one of an infinite number of actions that steer you closer to what calls your name and sustains your soul.
This quarantine has left many aspects of our lives in uncertainty. This is especially true for us seniors who are already making the journey from childhood to adulthood and adjusting to our new place in our lives. I am so fortunate to have not had much taken away from me over quarantine. While my last 2 years of high school and the college application process were disrupted, I did not suffer from any financial loss or loss of family or friends. In retrospect, from a time approaching near normalcy, I can see why the quarantine was so devastating to so many people, even if they did not lose much beyond the threat of COVID. This time of youth and adolescence is supposed to be one of a flourishing social life, but just like that, the contact from others was severed as we retreated into our homes to protect ourselves and our families. We lost our ability to tend to our relationships. Friendships went digital as a time of phone calls, Zoom, and texting took over. I remember FaceTiming friends for hours as we continued our day-to-day life at home. It was comforting feeling the presence of another person, even if it was just digital. There is a scientific explanation to why this happens. Humans are extremely social creatures, and as described in Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, people have social needs of love and belonging in order to feel a sense of well-being. From this, we develop our connections, trust, friendship, and intimacy with others. While the threat of withholding biological needs like food and water are seen as much worse than withholding social needs, the social component is essential to human thriving. Harvard University conducted an 80-year-long study to follow a group of individuals beyond college and found that close personal relationships are the best predictor of happiness, health, and success. Also, sociologist Emile Durkheim explained this in The Homo Duplex, which explains our relationship between individual and society. Durkheim stated, "Far from being simple, our inner life has something like a double center of gravity. On one hand is our individuality, on the other is everything in us that expresses something other than ourselves. Not only are these two groups of states of consciousness different in their origins and their properties, but there's a true antagonism between them." As I reflect back to quarantine, I can see the moments where I witnessed this and experienced it myself. I remember how back last March, I would drive to the local Dairy Queen with a friend and we would park next to each other in our separate cars, eat our ice cream, and talk over the phone because seeing each other in person was so much more personal than Zoom or FaceTime could ever be. I also heard a story about how an old folks' home built a special plastic wall with fully enclosed sleeve resembling an arm-length rubber glove, attached so that loved ones could still hug the residents as they were isolated for their protection. And finally, one of the struggles of quarantine that stands out the most to me were how to throw birthday parties. I've driven past more than a few houses donning cutout letters with the honoree's name and a family sitting on the driveway as cars honked and waved to cheer up the little kids and wish them a happy birthday. For one of my friends last May, we organized a small car parade where we dropped off gifts and flowers and we waved and honked from 6 feet away. And for my birthday, which was 3 days after the quarantine was placed, my friends put together a video of some of their favorite memories from our years together. As humans, we will always gravitate towards our interpersonal connections. As children, we seek out others to play with at the park or at school, and this very rarely changes as we get older. It's so important to lean into these relationships, especially during times of uncertainty or fear. And so I will leave you with a quote from American mystery novelist Mignon G. Aberhart. The complexity of human relationships is never simple to follow. It is like intricate lacework, but lacework made of steel.
As I settle into this summer, the summer before I go to college that promises to have a return to relative normalcy, I can't help but reflect on the memories and emotions I experienced during high school, especially the ones from this last year and a half due to the more than memorable circumstances. Up until halfway through my junior year, my high school experience included a lot of socializing and being around people most of my waking moments. I was almost either always at school for marching band or hanging out with people. So it was definitely a bit of a shock when everyone had to start social distancing due to COVID. But even before quarantine, I knew that I was more comfortable in solitude than when around company. Not that I necessarily dislike being around company, I just usually prefer being alone than being with people most of the time. So when the pandemic struck and we were quarantined, I was actually kind of happy that I could spend more time focusing on things I want to do and enjoy doing. Like I learned how to play the mandolin, and I started going on hikes and bike rides that were previously absent in my life. I had also found the time to start reading books, which is something I had always enjoyed, but I hadn't done outside of school for some time. It was also nice that quarantine allowed me to maintain a routine with less unpredictability. All of these things I'd already known about myself before the pandemic and had even looked forward to these aspects at the beginning. But something I didn't expect was that eventually I found myself feeling a little lonely and a bit starved of personal human connection. So, around 5 months into quarantine, I started to look for a way to do something fun with my friends that wasn't in person. We found that talking on Discord and playing a variety of video games like Minecraft and Among Us was a really good way to have fun doing something while also having normal conversations. We played almost every single night for around half a year. I used to not like group calls, but it became a part of my daily routine for a good portion of the year, and it became the majority of my social interaction as well. Before, when I was around people all the time, I almost found it exhausting, and this made me not appreciate the amount of time I had with people. But after being in solitude for some time, I learned the value of having good friends and the ability to see them whenever I want. I had taken for granted the time I had together with the people I care about. So as I go on to college, I'll take that lesson with me to appreciate and cherish the time I spend and the memories I make with the people around me.
Thank you, seniors, for your incredible insight. It's now time for sharing our gifts. It's the custom of this congregation to share half of what we receive with an organization that shares our values. The Point Foundation, which is the National LGBT Scholarship Fund, has been helping students achieve their dreams for 20 years. This recently, they have started a scholarship fund for Black, Indigenous, and people of color, particularly, and we have an opportunity to support that particular fund with our generosity this month in June. As we honor the culmination of the academic year and the beginning of Pride Month, this seems like a great time to give some of our support to that program. The link to give online is in your chat box, and may we be moved to generosity as we enjoy this gift of music. Just like at a child dedication or a wedding or a funeral, sometimes in life we need to gather community to be with us in a special life moment. We're together as a community today as we honor our seniors. We're also here to bear witness as parents, bestow their blessing on their children in this important threshold of life, transitioning into young adulthood. So parents, we have a reading for you to share with your kids and with this community.
May you be brave enough to expose your aching woundedness and reveal your vulnerability.
May you speak your deepest truth, knowing that they will change as you do.
May you sing the music within you, composing your own melody, playing your song with all your heart.
May you draw, paint, sculpt, and sew, showing the world your vision.
May you write letters, poetry, biography, slogans, graffiti, the great novel, laying bare your words to love and hate.
May you love even though your heart breaks again and again.
And until the end of your days,
May your
may your
life be filled
With possibilities and courage.
Julia, Joey, Ryan, one of the best things about a faith community is that no matter where life takes you, it stays put. We will be here wherever you go on your journeys and whenever you have time to visit, and we hope it is often. I've ordered a small chalice for each of you from the UUA bookstore. It won't take up much space in your dorm room or wherever you're headed, but I hope you'll use it to light a candle when you have a rough day or when you need to celebrate something. And remember that no matter where you go, you are part of a big, broad faith tradition that loves you very much. Were we in person, you would be receiving thunderous applause and great big hugs, but we will give those all to you virtually now. Congratulations, friends.
The chalice is now extinguished, but its light lives on in the minds and hearts and souls of each one of us. Carry that flame with you as you leave this place and share it with those you know, with those you love, and most especially with those you have yet to meet.
Take courage, friends.
The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high.
Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone.
Go in peace and let the light within you be a blessing to the world.